Reading's Digital Revolution Department at Reading Museum represents a forward-thinking initiative that bridges the past and future of the town's rich industrial and technological heritage. Located in the heart of Reading, Berkshire, this department explores how the town has evolved from a hub of traditional industries, such as brewing, biscuit making, and seed production, into a center of digital innovation and technological creativity. The Digital Revolution Department celebrates Reading's role in shaping Britain's digital landscape, highlighting the people, companies, and ideas that have driven its transformation in the modern age. The department forms part of Reading Museum's broader mission to connect local history with global narratives. Through interactive exhibits, multimedia installations, and digital archives, it invites visitors to explore how technology has changed the way we live, work, and communicate. From the early days of computing and telecommunications to the rise of the information age, the displays trace a fascinating journey of invention and adaptation.
My name is Brendan Carr. I'm the Community Engagement Curator here at Reading Museum. So we're here in the Sir John Medeski Art Gallery at Reading Museum, inside the current exhibition, the current temporary exhibition, Reading's Digital Revolution, which is intended to take a look at how Reading's very well known and very important and huge computing industry began in Reading, how it evolved over the past 60 years, and a little bit of a look at what the future might hold for the ICT industry. It's been an ambitious project that was delivered in partnership with the National Museum of Computing and with the support of the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and also in partnership with an organisation called LXXVIII, which is the Association of Retired Employees from the company Digital Equipment Corporation, and another organisation called DECUS, which is the DEC Users Group Association, and alongside that a local charity called RG Spaces supported the development and production of this exhibition. The exhibition is just one component of the project that we felt was going to be really important because we discovered that very little work had been done so far to establish any narrative about how Reading has become such an important centre for ICT. It's a really important part of Reading's economic identity. Something like 13% of the population are involved in the field of tech. It drives a multi-billion-pound industry. And in fact, in the greater Reading area, there are something like 11,000 tech-related businesses located in this region, but very little evidence of how that came about. So little what you'd call a collective memory, and there was a danger that the possibility of getting to the bottom of that and finding out more was going to be lost as an ageing original group of developers are passing through. And the industry itself, of course, is very progressive and forward-looking, and it isn't necessarily in the business of capturing history. So the partnership with the National Museum of Computing and with LXXVIII was very important in terms of our being able to find out about how Reading became the tech town that it is today. And we did find out. The story is that DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, which had become a major player in the USA, was receptive to one of its employees' ideas about expanding into Europe. And that was John Leng. We had a grainy photograph of John Leng, but we didn't know anything more than that. But through a process of engaging with the Dexter's community, we did eventually find John, a sprightly 92-year-old, retired, living in Sun City, Arizona. So through the power of technology, much of which originated from innovation that was in part engineered and developed in the offices of Digital Equipment Corporation here in Reading. Through that technology, it was, of course, possible for us to set up what you call a Zoom call with John. And he was able to give us chapter and verse on how it was that he hit upon Reading as the centre, a place to begin European operations for the first major computer company to base itself in this area. John found a vacant lot above Bilby's furniture shop on London Street. And it had the advantage in that this lot had previously been a bingo hall, and it was equipped with tables. So he was able to furnish without any further expense. And before long, himself and a secretary, Hilary Cheek, set to work on recruiting more people and beginning to sell these high-powered data processing machines called PDPs to the research establishments and universities in the vicinity. And it wasn't long before John was taking on new staff, including a gentleman called Jeff Shingles. And Jeff was very important in this story because although he has passed away, he left behind him a really important archive of his business records. We managed to arrange for those to be deposited at the Royal Berkshire Archive. And that has formed the basis of much of the research that has been able to tell us the story of how from that very small beginning, with not much more than a telephone line and an empty disused bingo hall, Reading's fortunes were really transformed. And we kind of hit the jackpot with that bingo hall because after DEC, others began to follow and recognise Reading's ideal location as a centre for the ICT industry. ICL followed, for instance. And during the 70s and 80s, the growth of the business as technology developed from large-scale sort of mainframe computers, DEC had established new, smaller, more portable, more user-friendly PDP machines that could be used for all sorts of processes within everyday businesses. So your supply chain, your point of sale, your HR functions, your office-based communications could all soon be managed on a much simpler basis, and computer production became mass production and were used in everyday businesses. Not quite yet the home market that we have today, but certainly business boomed. And in fact, by the 1980s, DEC was turning over millions per week. And the only thing holding expansion down was the rate at which it could find more office space. And so the solution was to invest in new buildings. And amongst that was DEC Park, which was at Wharton Grange, and then DEC Park 2, which was a really important centre for the latest cutting-edge engineering and science and technology and research, including earlier breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. That's not new news at all. We have things on display here that talk about digital equipment developing artificial intelligent capabilities right back in the late 1980s. So the best of the best were coming to DEC and to ICL in Reading, and that created an ecosystem which allowed a flourishing of startup businesses. And when DEC eventually was sold to Compaq, many people at that point left and found new businesses of their own, taking their ideas into their own start-up businesses. And as I say, a start-up culture and small tech businesses and software companies began to build up and flourish in Reading. And alongside that, of course, was the arrival of Microsoft at Thames Valley Park. And the interesting thing is that Thames Valley Park, the land for that, was originally purchased by Digital Equipment Corporation with a plan to expand that way into the Wokingham district. So those connections and the importance of DEC in Reading and its legacy in Reading has really been the impetus of a digital revolution that has been shaped by Reading globally and has had a real bearing locally. And of course, in undertaking this ambitious project to create an exhibition about that, we wanted to think about how, like the Industrial Revolution, which we can look back on and understand the forces that were at play there, this digital revolution is still one that is unfolding. So as well as painting a portrait of the town as it is today in the section of the exhibition called Tech Town Today, which received the support of 11 local companies to represent the 11,000 companies in the region, it actually tells a story of how Reading is affected today and the developments of places like Green Park, Thames Valley Park, the new science parks at Reading University, Shinfield Studios, all sorts of very interesting developments that have all stemmed from places like Deck Park being introduced into the townscape. So it really has affected architecture in the town. It's changed the face of the town. It's brought highly qualified people to the town, but it hasn't been without its challenges. So, for instance, one of the things that we don't shy away from in the story is the way in which there is a growing gap between those that are what you'd call economically vibrant and successful, you might say the word is, and those that are less well off and are struggling to access the prosperity that has come to the town. There's also questions about the sustainability of the town as a place, as a centre for computing. And so those were questions that we didn't want to shy away from in the exhibition when we looked at Tech Town Tomorrow. And we worked with a couple of visual artists, Jessica and Justin, both really fantastic artists who helped us to engage with young people for their views on what the future might hold. And we also talked to local developers, and we talked to Professor Kathy Payne from Henley Business School, who is a leading thinker in city future development and planning. And she gave a very optimistic view of Reading's future in terms of its prospect of remaining what she describes as the beating heart of the ICT industry in the Reading and the Greater Reading area. It was also interesting in that part of the exhibition to hear from John Leng and take extracts from his interview where he talks about what his approach would be to the future if he was a young man again arriving in Reading. And he believes that although there are challenges and threats to how the future will unfold, he also thinks that there's, like every development in technology, lots of opportunities and new jobs ahead as well. So the young people themselves were talking about the need for them to be provided with the opportunities and the skills to develop careers in this area. And so hopefully we've given a rounded picture as far as we possibly can when we're talking about imagining a future that sits well in terms of describing what, as I say, is an unfolding digital revolution. And the exhibition itself is full of vintage technology, some of which people might remember from their own childhood, like the BBC Basic, which of course many of the software engineers of today cut their teeth There are also some very important items here from the National Museum of Computing's own collection, which they were very generous and kind and supportive in terms of lending it so that we could put it on show here in Reading Museum. But we've covered the walls with the story. It's quite an immersive exhibition, a little bit much to take in, you might say, but again, a small and confined space, but with lots of detail in it. So it rewards, coming more than once to see the exhibition. We're open here until December the 24th, when we'll close this temporary exhibition. We'll retain all of the information and then go live with a digital version of what you can physically see here, so that all of the research that we've undertaken as part of this project will be available. And who knows, I do think it warrants further academic research into the story of how DEC developed and grew and what has unfolded in Reading and the influence that it's had on all sorts of areas of our town's life, including, as I say, the sort of architectural fabric of the town as well. So, please don't miss the exhibition. We're open until December the 24th.
The Digital Revolution Department at Reading Museum is a vibrant and interactive space dedicated to exploring the technological and digital transformations that have shaped Reading and the wider Thames Valley region. It serves as both an exhibition and an educational hub, tracing the town's journey from its industrial roots to its current status as a key player in Britain's digital economy. The department captures the essence of Reading's identity as a place of innovation, where creativity, science, and industry intersect to drive progress. The exhibition begins by setting the historical context, showing how Reading's earlier industries laid the groundwork for modern technological development. Once renowned for its 3Bs, beer, biscuits, and bulbs, Reading's prosperity and workforce skills during the 19th and early 20th centuries created a strong foundation for later industrial diversification. The Digital Revolution Department highlights how, from the mid-20th century onwards, Reading transitioned from traditional manufacturing to technology and information-based industries. This shift mirrored global changes as new forms of communication, computing, and electronics began to redefine society. One of the department's key focuses is on Reading's pivotal role within the M4 corridor, often dubbed the United Kingdom's equivalent of Silicon Valley. Through displays, photographs, and interactive digital maps, visitors can explore the rise of major technology companies in the area, such as Microsoft, Oracle, and Hewlett-Packard, and understand how Reading became a magnet for global tech investment. The exhibition also pays tribute to the pioneering research conducted at the University of Reading, particularly in areas such as cybernetics, artificial intelligence, and environmental data science. The department's exhibits are designed to engage visitors through immersive, hands-on experiences. Interactive touchscreens allow guests to explore the evolution of personal computing, while virtual reality displays simulate the development of early digital networks and the Internet. Artifacts such as vintage computers, telecommunication devices, and early mobile phones are displayed alongside multimedia presentations that illustrate how technology has become increasingly compact, powerful, and accessible. Audiovisual materials feature interviews with local innovators, entrepreneurs, and engineers whose work has contributed to the region's digital growth. In addition to celebrating technological progress, the Digital Revolution Department also reflects on the social and cultural dimensions of the digital age. Exhibits address how digital technologies have influenced communication, work, education, and entertainment. For example, displays examine how the rise of the Internet and social media transformed community life, how online learning reshaped education, and how creative industries in Reading, such as digital art, gaming, and music production, continue to thrive in a connected world. The department also engages with contemporary themes, such as sustainability, digital inclusion, and the ethical challenges posed by artificial intelligence. Workshops, talks, and school programs encourage visitors to think critically about the benefits and responsibilities of living in a digital society.